Okay, Rebecca, I'm starting us off, if only to say, over to you, and you're going to basically interrogate me on this issue because I've had more disruptive, unhelpful learners, it seems, over my career than yourself. So, what do you want to start us off with?
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. Yeah. So, not all learners come willing and ready to learn or want to be there when we're doing these workshops on trainings and learning and development and stuff. So, how do we deal with them and what problems do they cause for us?
Oh, it's good to have got 4 hours for this, isn't it? And I guess it's not even just about group work. It could be working with individuals. It could be in any way, shape, or form. But the principle is when we are helping people to learn, either in a group context, either within organization, either as an open program or working one to one, when we detect, when we see very clearly sometimes, it's very evident sometimes, someone behaving in an unhelpful way, which of I've come up with four options. I mean, I'm not saying these are the only ones, but which of, for instance, if you're seeing that, um, which of these four options sometimes do we take either by habit, unconsciously, or deliberately? Do we appease? Do we accommodate? Do we challenge often enough when we should? I
Mhm.
take the view sometimes we need to. And do we confront? And I've done confronting. I've actually confronted people for very unhelpful and dysfunctional behavior to the astonishment sometimes of other people in the group.
So, can you give examples of how people can be disruptive? Because people can be disruptive in different ways, can't they, as well?
Yeah, I can and I will. And by the way, anyone having the good fortune of watching or listening to this, we don't rehearse this. So these aren't stooge questions. I can give examples, and I have prepared. I've
Well,
prepared,
then, yeah.
and I've prepared in more ways than this. But I revisited my own 43 years of experience of this, and this doesn't happen very often. It's an irregular occurrence. Usually, people are quite well behaved, well mannered, polite. There's a sort of protocol. I mean, I'll just give a few examples. Um, I was doing, I was engaged to run for a long-term client a number of technically contexted, but basically we would recognise it is fundamental team supervisory leadership 3 day event. And I was just told basically go to Scotland, run this for whoever got in the room, and off you go. So I start one of these and I say, well, we're here on the mate course, which was managing in a technical environment. And when I said, hold on a minute, did you say mate course? I said, yeah. And he was one of three people in this time, by the way. And he said, well, I've done this already. And I thought, oh, this is going to be interesting. He says, I did this with the other bloke. What's his name? I said, yeah, Les. Yeah. No, I did it about a year ago. And he said, yeah, okay. I said, okay, well, that presents me with an issue straight away. Are you going to stay here or are you going to go? He says, oh, I'll stay here and suck it up.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
So what he didn't do was because I did it in a different way. I brought quite a bit of me to it. But what he didn't do was go into the, so I don't see the point of being here. What the hell's this? He didn't do that. But it
Mm.
didn't give me that moment of being ready in case he did. If he had, I'd have said, off you go.
Yeah.
I'm left with two for 3 days. I mean,
So
I
that's
know.
actually sort of disruptive, but not too disruptive. So
No,
yeah.
and really, it wasn't even answering your question. I will answer your question. When I worked previously, I worked for myself for over 32 years, but in my last paid job, yeah, it feels like that. I was working as a residential management tutor, um, and my boss was very commercial. And I said, look, I've got two people on this 4 day program next week. I said, do I run it or do I tell them, wait to get more? Run it, run it. Haven't got anything to do, I run it. So I ran it. 4 days for two people. They didn't get on. They didn't get on at all. And so the disruption wasn't aimed towards me, it was more an enmity towards each other. And it was residential. They took meals at different times to avoid each other. So far from what time should we meet and then go to the bar, they're avoiding each other. And so that was disruptive in a different sort of way and a different sort of dynamic to manage. Never mind running a 4 day residential program for two people. That was challenging enough. But when they
Did they
saw
know
you
each
didn't get
other?
on, no, no.
They
I
just
don't think they came from competitor organizations, but they just didn't get on.
Hmm, interesting, yeah.
And I've had other groups that didn't get on. When in my first job, I ran induction, um, And that was bad enough in itself. You know, herd people into a room, tell them things, and get people like chief executive others to tell them things. That's all right. It kind of worked. People are usually well mannered when they soon after they arrive to an organisation. But there's one bloke. I had them for some reason. I had them in rows, and I didn't do that very often afterwards. I had them in rows, about 5 rows of about 25 people in total. And in the second row was a bloke who kept telling us that he was Sally Oppenheim's, the MP at that time, brother-in-law. And almost everything he said was prefaced with, "Well, of course, I'm Sally Oppenheim's brother-in-law," and people then started to moan and go, "Oh, oh what do I do here?" Because I was quite young and quite inexperienced, and the people in the front were going. Every time he said it, they couldn't see. He couldn't see them doing this. They were going, rolling their eyes and going, and people behind them are getting their ties and doing this. So behind him, he had people who said, "I'm going to hang myself if he does that again." And in front, we had people rolling their eyes and doing this because he kept saying it. Now, I didn't say to him in a break time, "Can you, for your own good, stop?" I just didn't know how to do that. I think I do it now, but that might sound petty, but it absolutely got in the way of everything we did for 2 days.
Yeah, I suppose it's things like that that's irritating behaviours, isn't it? So it's not necessarily, so that's the interesting thing around the disruptive behaviour. It's not necessarily that they're disrupting the teaching deliberately, but sometimes it's the way they behave,
Yeah,
either with the learners or yourself.
unintentionally. Yeah.
Yes.
Laura, I'll give you a couple of others. I was working with a group not far from you, Hillsborough, an employer there, and I was working with a bunch of people who was given to coach, and a lot of these guys just didn't see the point, didn't want to do it, and so I rang up one guy, Ian, bless him. I won't mention his other name, Warhurst, and I rang him up a couple of days before. I've got some good news for you, and he says, "Oh, you're not coming up." I said, "Oh no, not that good." And and how do you deal with that? You brush it off. It's only for an hour and a half. I can cope with that. We went through the motions. I had to do it. He knew the name of the game. He was quite okay. But then I had somebody in a group again in Scotland. This guy was really difficult, and he was quite intentionally difficult. It was the start of apprenticeship programs. It was the start of needing to go through a huge compliance exercise that no one really knew at that time. I'm going back 4 or 5, but the very first year of apprentices, modern apprenticeships. It was a mess, and nobody had any guidance to give to us. And I was changing my advice to them constantly. And this bloke said, "Oh, what's the point of all this if you're telling us different things all the time?" I said, "Mate, I'm telling you what I'm being told, and that's all I can tell you. I don't make the rules. If I did, we'd all be happier, but I'm only passing on what we're checking out, and that's a shifting agenda." But he wasn't happy with that, and he was deliberately difficult about it. And I said to him, "Look," I said to him, Scott, because that was his name. I said, "Look, we're going to have a conversation in the next break about this because I think we need to resolve the impact you're having on people around you." And I said that in front of the other people so they knew what's going to take place. And first break, he came up to me and they all disappeared. Ooh, times of what's going on here then? And we had a frank conversation. I said, "Look, I know you don't like what's going on, and I don't either. I don't mind that impacting on me, but you're impacting on everyone else. And that bothers me and that troubles me, and I'm not going to have it. So we've really got to talk about how we're going to work this out." And he wasn't very happy about it. He went off grumbling. Later in the day, next break, he comes up and he said, "I'm not the person you think I am." And I said, "Okay, that's a good start. Where are we going with this?" He says, "I've reflected on what you said, and I think you're right." I said, "You're a big guy. Thank you for that. That's big of you."
Yeah.
And I'm so glad I had the conversation because what's the alternative? "Oh, I can't do anything about this." We can.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting, isn't it? Yeah. Very good.
I've sent people out of rooms before. I sent the chief officer in Wales out of a room because he arrived late. I was doing Investors and People for a Welsh borough, and it involved the chief officers of the organisation. It needed to. They're all there, including the chief executive, apart from Lynn, one of the chief officers. And I said, "Where is he?" "Oh, he's always late for everything." I said, "Okay, let's see how late he gets, because there's a too late to get any value from this."
Yeah.
He arrived after 11 o'clock. "Oh, so sorry. I'm so busy." I said, "Turn around and go back where you've come from and be busier still, because we're too far gone." And they all looked at me with a sort of, "Wow." And he turned to him and went off. And he said, "You've just told him to go back to it." I said, "Yeah." And they said, I wish some other people had done that because he's done it a number of times.
Yeah, but then that becomes disruptive to the whole group, isn't it? I think that's the thing maybe we need to get into on this is it's not just the person, it's the impact that it has on the rest of the people within the group, isn't it? And I think that's why
Absolutely.
you do need to address it in some way or another with these things. Yeah.
I think so. I think so. And sometimes you've got to judge whether the impact is on you only, or you're taking it personally. It's all about what, and it's the reaction people get. And if they're going behind a bloke, or if they're looking annoyed with the guy Scott, for instance, it's a judgment, and you don't always get it right. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I've had people break down in tears unintentionally. I didn't make them, but I've done group work, and if people are called with someone, it's either insensitive on my part. You don't know what people's sensitivities are. And then you've got to deal with the fact that someone's broken down in tears. Now, that's not deliberately disruptive, but it's something we've got to deal with and decide how to deal with. So you don't say, "Hey, you crying person, get out of the room. You're getting in the way of everyone else." How do
Yeah.
you learn this?
Yeah, it is. I think it is a case of the more experience you get in training and sort of delivering, facilitating these sort of things, the easier it becomes to some extent. But also, I remember you have reminded me, I went in to do a first aid course somewhere, and it was a group of blokes, all bus drivers or lorry drivers. They had to do it as part of their CPC
Compulsion.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't want to be there. Now, I walked into this not knowing the situation that I was going to get these people sat there, wouldn't even write the name on the register sort of thing. So I decided, right, I was in there to deliver this program. The few people who wanted to engage, I took them into another room. I did the
Yeah.
work with them. I said, that's
Yeah.
fine. I just completely ignored them. And I said, well, if you're not there, you're not engaging, you don't get the certificate because you're not, I'm not just willing to put your name on a certificate because you haven't engaged.
Good.
So I didn't take it personally. I thought you don't want to be there. That's your issue.
Yeah.
That's fine. So I engaged with the people who were willing to engage with me and actually took part in
You've
it.
got to make these decisions in the moment.
Yeah.
You can't think 8 minutes later what you should have done. The only chance to get the decision right is there and then, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
I've also had to confront people making racist language. Now I'm thinking about it.
Mm,
Uh, and I said, hang on a minute, I'm not letting that go. Because that to me is offensive and wrong. And what was interesting was there was a general look of astonishment. I was working in the same organization, like, what's your problem here, mate? Type look on their faces. And I thought, oh, this is interesting.
mm,
So what would we regret not doing, which would have dealt with something better other than what we did is the kind of thing. When you're driving home thinking, oh, why didn't I say this? Why didn't I do it? It's doing those things in the moment and having the personal credibility and confidence to do it. And it's very often difficult. I've broken a group up once. When in my first job, one of the things I did was introduce the idea of kind of staff appraisal. We called it staff development interviewing. And I did session after session after session of this. And I had one group there who clearly didn't want to engage with this. And I had someone say, before we get started, I can't be here this afternoon. It was a whole day thing. And so, nor can I. In a group of about 12, I was down to about 7. I said, okay, who can't be here this afternoon? Most hands up. Right, we'll come back again another time. Oh, no, we're here. No, we just, no. I said, we're here for a day event now or later. I can bring you on others. I said, we all go back to work. And one or two of them weren't happy about that because they travelled from another part of the county, that sort of stuff. But I broke it up. I went straight to my boss and I said, I'm telling you what I've just done because the phone might start ringing.
But I
And
think
that,
we
by the
have
way,
to
is my
address these
boss's
things.
boss's boss.
Yeah. And so this was a team meeting actually, not that long ago, only a couple of months ago. And one of
Yeah,
our team members, she's done it before, but this time it was particularly annoying. So there's a group of maybe 20 of us.
yeah.
Her phone rang, so she shouldn't have had a phone on really anyway in the
Oh,
meeting. Her phone
right. Good
rang,
one.
but she took the call. She went and stood in the corner, but unfortunately it was echoing. So we could hear her
Oh,
conversation. Our team leader continued to try and continue the team meeting.
I
And
can't
I
do that.
thought, you shouldn't have done that. So
Yeah.
this went on for probably nearly 10 minutes, actually. It was quite a long time. So I thought that was really bad. And I did email my team leader afterwards and said, you know, please, can you have a word with such and such, because she's done this before and
Right.
it's really disruptive. And she said, don't worry, I will be. But I thought you should have addressed it in the moment,
Yeah,
because it
absolutely.
impacts. It was such an unprofessional thing to do and
Yeah,
really disruptive.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we like the work of Nancy Klein, Thinking Environment,
yeah,
and all that. She insists on taking everyone's devices physically off them before she starts working with them. Now, I've tried that once or twice, and there's resistance.
yeah.
And I think, well, why are you resisting? Because you're not prepared to give full uninterrupted attention. In the stone this time, you want the comfort factor of, if my phone rings, I'm so important, I've got to take a call. But what we're talking about here are, have we got the arsenal? Have we got the range of skills? And I'll just pull this model up again because I like it. I like anything that I produce because I'm so amazingly creative. But I just like the thought that we do have, if we choose to go there, and if we choose it's right, quite a firm position of challenge.
Mm,
Uh, and the difference for me between challenge and confrontation is you can challenge and accept another point of view. If you confront, it's about confronting with the intention only to go to one place, i.e.,
yeah.
to resolve things how you like, your own way. So I might challenge someone and say, "Look, I'm not happy with what I'm seeing here. Can you?" And say, "Look, I'm not trying to be difficult." Okay, I misread what you were saying. When I finished my professional qualifications, for 2 years, I didn't realise that one of my tutors had misread my signals. He said to me at the end, he said, "Andrew, now we've finished. I'll have a conversation with you I maybe should have had a year ago. Every time I put an overhead slide, we're talking about 1980s, on the screen, you seem to disagree like this." I said, "Mike, I've only realised in the last 3 or 4 months that my eyes aren't that good, and I was squinting, and I'm going to have to get glasses or contacts soon." And I said, "And all the time you put stuff, I was doing this to see more clearly what you're putting up." He says, "Oh, I always thought you disagreed with everything I put on the screen because you were doing this."
Yeah. So if the having those conversations, if he'd have queried that earlier, then you could have cleared it up much sooner, and he probably wouldn't be feeling really awkward about it. Think, God, he's so
Yes,
disagreeable, this person.
that's what it was. I was just trying to get focused. But it is, yeah, it is not just about playing anecdotes here. It's about saying, over a period of time, as people who facilitate others learning, I think we need to accept the responsibility we have. And you've pointed out really clearly that when one person's behavior, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not, impacts on others, we really should do something about it.
Hmm. And it's choosing the right, or choosing not necessarily. I think there's probably more than one right, but it's choosing the most appropriate method in the time, isn't it? And that's where the sort of skill comes in to this
Yeah,
and
it
the
really is. I mean,
experience.
I've worked residentially for years, and I used to get all types of people in that environment. And one type of person was the person who used to delight in coming up to me at every break time and say, "Don't know if you've noticed, but so and so is not really engaged in this," or "I don't know if you've noticed, but so and so didn't get on with someone else." And I thought, "Oh, right, yeah, well, I did notice that. Thank you very much, and I don't need your help." Um, and, so, so sometimes it's more nuanced. It's a
Mm.
sort of disruptive thought. You think, "Oh goodness me, I'm going to have another conversation because I've just seen him make a note on the back," and and it, there are lots and lots of ways in which humans seem to make life, well, not difficult or for us, but more challenging. And that's a good challenge because I think it makes us better at what we do. If we got an easy ride all the time, and I did a negotiation course for Stafford Borough Council regularly, and I liked doing it, and it was good. Negotiation's brilliant. It's very active and involved and participative. But there was one bloke there when he went round the tell us who you are, where you came from, why you're here today type thing. We did it very quickly. He was like this. And he was the last one to introduce himself. I thought, here we go. And he says, "Well, this is negotiation, isn't it?" Well, I'm clearly not very good at negotiation because I couldn't negotiate my way out of being here today.
Brilliant answer.
Bloke, well, I've got so many of these now. It is 43 years I've been doing this. Another guy said to me, "I don't know why I'm here. I'm retiring in 2 years." And I said, "Well, I'm going to focus on you because you're not going anywhere, are you? So the organization's going to get value out of you." He glared at me. So, and that's only the people who tell you what's on their mind. Sometimes people just keep it to themselves and let you find it out for yourself, or just don't. I did a course for Ford years ago. It was for a bunch of mechanics and manager mechanics, and they were just going out every night and getting completely wasted. And they were just in a terrible state the next morning. They just couldn't work, they were too drunk. I couldn't get anything out of them till about lunch. But they gave me terrible reviews because they just didn't want to be in the first place, and they just saw it as a jolly.
Yeah. And that's frustrating, isn't it? So I suppose I'm aware, obviously, I know we try and keep
Oh,
these
I know, well
conversations
done.
to,
Look at the
I know,
time. Oh, dear.
exactly. So what would you say, what's the key thing that you want people to take away from this?
All right, well done. I've got most of the ticks on my list. I suppose the key thing is, and I have got a bit over enthusiastic about this, the key thing is to have the confidence to, in the moment, at the right time, which is very often right now, not later, to say, I need to do something about this, and then have some idea of what that is without having to justify yourself. So long as it's in the interest, the wider interest of the group you're working with. It might be a group of two, it might be a group of 30 who are being impacted by someone's unhelpful behavior, and doing it, not doing it. Not doing it is too easy, and we often know it's wrong. So we've got to have the confidence to do that. And sometimes you get it wrong. Sometimes you find that that's more of a difficult thing to do, and I found this, than you really thought it was going to be. But I think it's still the right thing to tackle and to try to do, rather than simply accommodate and appease people.
Mhm. There's more to be had on this, I think, but yes, I like that as summary.
At the time, I've gone too excitable here. I thought it might, because, but people are genuinely and generally very helpful. Some aren't. We need to do something about it. I'm closing us down now.
Thank you.